Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan, a podcast for anyone wanting to start, grow or scale a profitable creative product business with me, Catherine Erdley. The Resilient Retail Game Plan is a podcast dedicated to one thing, breaking down the concepts and tools that I've gathered from 20 years in the retail industry and showing you how you can use them in your business. This is the real nuts and bolts of running a successful product business, broken down in an easy, accessible way. This is not a podcast about learning how to make your business look good. It's the tools and techniques that will make you and your business feel good. Confidently plan, launch and manage your products, and feel in control of your sales numbers and cash flow to help you build a resilient retail business. Welcome, it's episode 90 of the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm your host, Catherine Erdley, as well as the founder of the Resilient Retail Club. The Resilient Retail Club is my membership group for product businesses. You can find out more at resilientretailclub.com. And if you use the code 10podcast, that's 10podcast, you can get £10 off your first month. That means unlimited access to our entire library of courses, 4 live events a month, as well as a supportive community inside a private Facebook group. No minimum sign up required. And after your first month, it'll be just £32 a month. So this week we have a very special guest. Lauren Keplinger is an Etsy seller as well as an Etsy expert. She has been active on the platform since 2012, so for 10 years now. And she now works with businesses to help them with their Etsy performance as well. So she's going to share some really interesting insight into how the platform's changed, as well as share her top tips for success on Etsy in 2022. Hi, Lauren. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Do you want to start off by telling everyone a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. My name is Lauren Keplinger, and I started an Etsy shop back in 2012, making monogrammed baby stuff. And then in 2018, I started working with other Etsy shop owners and e-commerce sellers to grow their business. And a big part of it is also like maintaining balance in your life, because a lot of people get very overwhelmed when they start a business. So I am big on having that business that works for you and brings in the income that you want while also keeping that balance.
Love that. And you still have the Etsy shop, right?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
So you're balancing that as well as your work with other brands as well?
Yes, I do both.
So let's start off by talking about Etsy as a platform, because I know a lot of people listening, some of them will already be on Etsy, some of them maybe have been thinking about it. So what do you see as the kind of biggest plus, I guess, of being an Etsy seller?
Yeah, I think that the biggest plus of being on Etsy is the built-in traffic that they have. They have the brand recognition and sort of the name recognition of the platform that is going to be really difficult to replicate on your own. So having that built-in stream, particularly when someone is just starting out, can really help to bring in that revenue a little bit faster, because you can just get the traction from the Etsy search and the traffic that's already on the platform directed at your products a little bit faster than a lot of times you can with your own website. So having that traffic is really the whole reason to sell on a platform.
Right. Yeah. Because you're going where they've already got the traffic. So let's just talk for a minute, because of course you're based in the US, and I know we wanted to talk a little bit about the differences between US Etsy and UK Etsy. So what do you think some of the biggest challenges are for maybe UK specific stores?
So the biggest differences that I see between the two, well, it's kind of twofold. In terms of the name recognition, I think it has grown a lot in the UK over the past couple of years, but a large portion of a large percentage of the buyers on Etsy are based in the US still. So the majority of buyers are going to be US buyers. Obviously, not to say that there are not buyers all over the world, because there are. But if you're just looking at pure percentage wise, the name recognition is a lot more widespread in the US. The other kind of flip side of that is that the shipping is a real challenge then for shops that are based outside of the US, because such a large portion of the buyer base is located in the US. And Etsy, I think it's probably been about 2 years at this point, started really pushing free shipping, which I know from talking to people that are not located in the United States, that is not a very common thing outside of the US. But because of the stores that we have here and Amazon and all of that, having free shipping in the US, Etsy, and trying to stay competitive with that, has really pushed free shipping to US buyers. And that is regardless of where the actual shop is located. They really want you to have free shipping to US buyers. So for those of us that are located in the US, that's easier because it's not as expensive. For sellers that are outside of the US, that can be a hindrance because, you're trying to build in that shipping price to the price of your product, but that shipping price is so much more expensive to ship internationally.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's really challenging. I mean, I think, free shipping has definitely become more common in the UK, but I think you're right. When I speak to people who sell on Etsy, it's when they're being asked to provide free shipping to the US from the UK. And sometimes that is really quite an astronomical cost to the business. It's just like, how does it even make any sense?
Right. And the other part of that, just as devil's advocate here, to say that it's not really fair to sellers that are located outside the United States, is that US sellers, that expectation is not the same. Like I'm not expected, in terms of Etsy's expectation for free shipping, as a US seller, I'm not expected to have free international shipping. I'm only expected to have free domestic shipping. But sellers outside the United States are expected to have, they actually don't have to have free shipping to anybody but US buyers is what Etsy really pushes. So that is a definite disadvantage for sellers that are located outside of the United States, just in terms of, the direct comparison on a platform between one shop and another shop. That price point is, if it's a couple dollars difference, it's not that big of a deal. If it's costing you $20 to ship it, then all of a sudden it becomes a hindrance.
Yeah. I wonder as well, then, I guess if you're thinking about where the opportunities are, if that then in a way slightly does help British sellers selling to British customers, because then they can offer the free shipping, but it's just obviously a smaller market. Do you have any idea what percentage of buyers on Etsy are US based?
I don't. I should have looked that up ahead of time. And
it's probably pretty high, I'm guessing.
Yeah. If I had to guess, I would say it's well over 50%, but that would just be pulling that number out of thin air. I don't have any, I haven't looked that up.
So let's talk a little bit then about how the platform's changed. So you joined it back in, so you said 2012, so 10 years ago. Wow. So what do you think have been some of the biggest changes that over the last 10 years?
Gosh, there's been a lot on the internet in general. The biggest things that I have seen, well, the growth of the platform has just been phenomenal, and the name recognition. When I got started in 2012, I was in my late 20s. So like the perfect market for online selling. And my peer group, my friends, did not know what Etsy was. I had to explain to people what I was doing.
Yeah.
That is certainly not the case anymore. And I think along with a lot of kind of just changes on the internet in general, the platform has become so much more visual. Because when I got started, like Instagram wasn't really a thing. Obviously, there was nothing like TikTok or anything like that. Video content wasn't really big. So you had Facebook, but that wasn't really, it wasn't really the same as it is now.
No.
Now, with so many highly visual platforms like Instagram and people who are like influencers and they have these beautiful pictures and all of that, that expectation has spilled over, I think, to e-commerce in general. I would say that's not even just true of Etsy. It's kind of just true of the internet.
Yeah.
That expectation for the visual aspect of it, sort of the staging and the photography that you're putting forth, is a lot higher than it used to be, which is really challenging for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think that the perception of the platform has changed even amongst the people who maybe did know it back in the day? I mean, what I always find is sometimes I get to talk to Dana Eisen-Johnson, who's the Etsy trend expert, which is always good fun. And I feel like where they have things like the Etsy Design Awards now, and they are almost trying to shift that perception from it being predominantly kind of craft, handcraft, to more being design-led. Do you think that that's a shift you've seen as well?
I do think that that is a shift that I have seen from Etsy. I think that I still have a lot of people that come in and they are like crafting and getting into the market through having a craft that they already were doing. But I think that there are a lot more people who are like truly artists, and maybe they have some sort of training, like they went to school for art and that kind of stuff, like more just a little bit, I don't want to say more professional, because I think that those of us that got into it from a crafting background can also be professional. But I think that there's more validity to the market than there used to be. Like it used to be really more like, oh, you have this cute little thing that you like to make and now you're going to sell it online. And now, there's a lot of people that have really big businesses on Etsy. Like it's a lot more legit, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and also I suppose that the idea that it can be design-led and craft, it's almost like elevating that skill. I mean, because craft is so incredibly skilled. And like when you look at the design awards, for example, I think that there's definitely that element of handcrafting there, but it's like handcrafting is so elevated. Some of the things that people make are just incredible, aren't they?
Yeah. And I also do think that, over time, Etsy has allowed more avenues for the way you're producing things. So that has been sort of an evolution of them allowing you to have more manufacturers and stuff. So it used to be like you had to make everything. So if you were, a graphic designer, you could have graphic design, but you couldn't have fabric that you were selling with your graphic design because you couldn't have it produced in that way. You had to be making everything. Now they do allow the outsourcing of some of that manufacturing that they did not allow back in the day. So there would be people who say that they don't like that they wish that it could go back to kind of the handcrafted feel. But it does allow for those more professional or more like traditionally trained people to get into it, because they may not have a basement workshop where they're crafting, but they're, outsourcing something to a printing company or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about 2022 then. So what do you think are some of the top tips for people who are either starting out or equally maybe people who've been selling on Etsy? Like, what do you think? What is this year bringing?
Yeah. So the biggest thing that I have seen this year, both in my own shop and also in my students' shops, is that hyper narrow markets. Like we've always said, everybody always says to niche down or niche down because you're British, to get narrower and figure out who you're selling to and all of those things. But what I am seeing now is that there has to be such a focus on that. If you have sort of this general product, I have a silver necklace with nothing on it. Like the ability to get found in 2022 on a platform with millions of shops with kind of a nondescript item. No offense to your item.
Yeah.
It's not a problem with the item, but having those like hyper narrow markets is really where I'm seeing the success. Again, both in my own shop and in students' shops. The tangible example that I have of that is I just launched a new collection in my shop of printed baby blankets. So I am joining this trend of the graphic design aspect and then sending it to a printer. And I have done forever monogrammed baby blankets, a white blanket with a pink monogram for a baby girl. Like that's my biggest seller for the past 10 years. But these are printed with different designs and stuff. So I have all these, floral blankets. Oh, it's for a baby girl. It could go for any nursery. Like, doesn't everybody love it? Nope. Turns out they don't. And my number one seller of those collections is a baby blanket that has golden retriever dogs printed on it.
Right.
Because people who have golden retrievers, which I actually have one of my own, which is how that came about. And people that have golden retrievers are super attached to them. And so I've sold hundreds and hundreds of dollars of these golden retriever baby blankets, which is unexpected to me, actually. I kind of just put it up there to see how it went. And it was surprising to me.
Oh, it's so true. I love that you said that, because I often say to people, like, silver jewelry is not a niche. Like handmade silver jewelry is not a niche.
Right.
Silver monogrammed handmade jewelry is not a niche. It's like you have to get right the way down. It's like candles as well. So soy candles with essential oils is no longer a niche. It's like you have to think about what it is. Like, talk to people who sell brands where it's like a candle that evokes the scent of a book. So it's like, so it's so specific. And I suppose that's the kind of beauty, isn't it, of the fact that you can go on Etsy and you can find something that is so personal to you that if you don't have a golden retriever or a baby or a combination of both, right?
Right.
You don't want it. But if you do, you're like, oh yes, that's it. It's so fragmented. So it's about finding that real, like that really, really specific niche.
Yeah. And I think if you think about it in sort of broader terms, part of that has been not only Etsy, but it's across the board. If somebody wants a floral baby blanket, they don't have to order it from me on Etsy. They can get it literally anywhere. They could get it at Target. They could get it at Pottery Barn. They could get it anywhere. And so there's nothing particularly special about that. If you have a golden retriever or your friend does or whatever, and you want a lot of people will do like the dog is the big sister or whatever, and this is like you said, you have to have both a golden retriever and a baby to be interested in this product. And people will say like, but I don't want to, what if that's not a big enough market or whatever? But it's like, to have a vanilla scented candle, you're going to be competing with millions of other vanilla scented candles. Why does somebody want to buy that? There has to be something else. And again, it's not really a problem with the product. It's sort of a problem with the communication of the customer and where that fits into their life, whether it's like a book theme, or I see some with like funny labels on the front, that can be personalized or whatever. Like, what makes somebody take that leap and say like, this is the vanilla scented candle for me versus the 2 million others that are on the platform?
Do you think that that's kind of where we're arrived at now, because it is saturating, because more and more people are starting these small businesses, because there are more and more personalized options available, that it's like you have to really then narrow it down to that, say that very specific.
Yeah. I mean, I think once you are established, it's always, retail in general is always kind of trial and error of new products and new trends. And if you're an early adopter of a trend, I think it's easier to be a little more generic. If you were the first one that had book themed candles on Etsy, then it probably is still selling well. Like, more general ones are probably still selling well, just like my white baby quilts with a pink monogram still sell well.
Yeah.
But if you're just getting into the market, maybe it's not book themed candles. Maybe it is Jane Austen books, like to get into those narrower places where you can gain some traction. And then from there, you kind of see what people are asking from you, see what kind of changes they're asking you to make, and you can listen to the demand as you move forward.
Do you have any tips for how you even find something like that? Like, if you're sitting here listening to the podcast and thinking, okay, I really don't know, like what combination of factors I should look for here. Are there any kind of tips or ways that you can do a bit of research?
Yeah, I mean, I would start, if you are wanting to sell on Etsy, I would start on Etsy. Look around and see if you have a soy candle, search for soy candles and see what comes up, see what's already selling. I would also ask friends or think about your own life. Like I said, my golden retriever blanket happened because I have a golden retriever. And then from there, I can say, okay, well, if people love their golden retriever, they probably also love their French bulldog. And, I can expand from there. So looking and don't be afraid to try new things. Like, not everything that you make is going to be a bestseller. But if you put up 10 things and 2 of them sell really well, what is it about? Really studying what it is about that makes it unique. What I have taken from this experience with my golden retriever blanket, which has just been in the past, like, I think I added that one like 2 or 3 months ago. So this is like very new for me, a new collection. But what I've taken from that is this hyper narrow thing. So whether that means adding new dogs, which I'm going to do, but also like, how can I extrapolate on that in a way that goes beyond just dogs?
Yeah.
Like what other areas are people really attached to things?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that happens a lot. I mean, it happens with a lot of things, but people get really attached to their pets, their careers, their hobbies, and then kind of like the way that people define themselves, like their own, I don't know what the equivalent of this would be in the UK, but like in the United States, people define themselves really heavily by where they're from or what region they're from or whatever, like kind of these ways that people categorize themselves.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's the same in the UK for sure. People will become identified with a certain area, or sports teams, I'm sure, is another big one as well.
Yeah, or politics, if you want to get into that, which I wouldn't, but to each their own.
I think you make such a good point though about just trialing things. And I think that's one of the great things about Etsy, isn't it? It's like you can get something up and running, you get a listing up, it doesn't take that much to get it going. And then you can just try different things and just try different iterations. And I think that I sometimes say like almost everything boils down to do more of what works and less of what didn't work. And it sounds exactly like you're saying, like extrapolate out, understand what your bestsellers are telling you.
Yeah. And I think that Etsy does make it really easy. The barriers to entry for that are really low. It only costs 20 cents to list something. So you can put stuff up, and if it doesn't sell, you can work with that. And I do think that you have to know that not everything is going to sell. So just because something doesn't sell doesn't mean you're never going to hit that nail on the head and find something that works. It's part of the process. Like I have boxes in my basement of inventory that didn't sell and you just keep moving forward and you move on. But to know that not everything's going to sell, but also to listen to your customers and to listen to the demand. And with Etsy, there's such an easy way for them to communicate to you. And also Etsy has really marketed itself as like these small business, single owner businesses. So people feel more comfortable reaching out and saying, I really love this design, but could you add this to it? Or could you change this color or whatever? And from that, you say like, sure, especially when you're just getting started. Sure, I'll take that custom order. I'll make that change for you. And then I'm going to list that product again. I'm going to list that as something that's for sale in my shop. And that's honestly how, when I got started, I was doing burp cloth sets and stuff. And that's how I built the whole shop, was because people would say, I really love this elephant design, but I'd like it for a baby girl instead of a baby boy. Can you make it pink? Sure. And then I would take a picture and I would list it in my shop. And then, I really like this one, but can you make it stripes instead of polka dots? Sure. And then I would list it in the shop. And, listening to that feedback from people, they're going to be the people who are already in your shop and wanting to buy from you are the best ones to give you suggestions about what else to add.
Yeah, that's so true. I have a client who's one of her best sellers, big cash drivers, came from exactly that somebody said, oh, can you do this but in this combination? She's like, okay, then listed it. And actually, because if one person's thought that and they're your ideal customer because they're in your shop looking at your stuff, everyone else is going to be thinking, or other people will be thinking it too. Do you think it's got harder to get found on Etsy, or do you think that's offset by the increased traffic?
I would say it's a little bit of both. Certainly there is a lot more demand on Etsy than there was, when I got started 10 years ago. There's also a lot more competition. I think that again is kind of true about the internet in general. It's not specific to Etsy. So whether you're selling on your own website or you're selling on Facebook or you're selling on Amazon or you're, doing whatever, there has been such an explosion of e-commerce sellers and advertisements and everything.
Yeah.
Just the way the internet has changed. So I do think it is harder in a way to get found. I think that you have to have those more niche products, and you have to have a more specific vision for who you're trying to target than maybe you did 10 years ago. But I think that once you kind of figure out the intersection of those two, the demand there is a lot higher as well.
Got you. I think I often wonder with Etsy, do you find that people start interacting with you as a business, or is it more that because listings appear in search results, that people see individual products. They almost, the individual products stand on their own more than they do, say, when you're on your own website and everyone's seeing your whole collection together? Or do you find that you're still getting people who are loyal to you and will actually now come and look for your shop in particular and purchase from you? Again,
I think it's a little bit of both. In my own shop, I have anywhere from like 20 to 40% repeat customers. So in my Etsy shop. And that is in spite of the fact that I have my own website where the prices are actually lower than my Etsy shop. They still come back to Etsy over. And I mean, I've had people who have bought from my shop. I had a corporate customer who ordered corporate baby gifts, and they ordered like 40 times on Etsy. Wow. And that, again, is in spite of the fact that I send coupons and whatever. There are people who are just, they want to keep it all in the same place. And it makes it easy on Etsy to keep all your purchases in the same place. And they're comfortable with it. And they come back again and again. There are lots of people who also will go over to my website, and then they are like brand loyal just to me. And then, the new customers that come in are usually finding you just through the search. But that, again, like we talked about in the beginning, is kind of the benefit of finding or of selling on a platform is those new people discovering you through those listings in the search. Yeah. That's the thing I think is hardest to replicate on your own website, isn't it? Is the discovery element. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So to finish things up then, what would you say if you're listening to this podcast and you think, okay, right, yes, I want to give it a go. Like, what's your sort of biggest tip, if you like? I mean, we talked a lot about the importance of niching, but anything else that you'd like to share for people who are looking to grow in Etsy in 2022? Yeah, I think to think about it, even whether you're wanting to grow an Etsy shop specifically, or whether you are using it as a tool for that discovery part of it, that you're then funneling those people through to your own website, to really think about. I always tell people, when you get a listing up and you think you've got it, good to go, then look at a page of results, search for whatever, your book themed candle or whatever, and scroll through that page of results and study the ones that catch your attention, the ones that make you stop scrolling and look a little bit closer, or the ones that make you click on it. And why is that? To really analyze, there's this page of 40 results or whatever, and this certain listing caught my attention. Now, if I see my own listing in there, it probably is going to catch your attention just because you're familiar with it. But if you were a buyer who was new and just scrolling through, is that, is the photography good enough that somebody's going to want to click on it? Does it, does the description make sense and not confuse people? Is there anything that, from an outside perspective, to try to step outside of your own shop and look at your stuff from an unemotional standpoint, which is hard, and say, like, where is the holdup that would stop somebody from buying this? And how can I fix that? Love that. Well, fantastic tip. Well, Lauren, thank you so much for joining me today. Do you want to tell everyone a little bit more about where they can find out more about you? Yeah. I have my own podcast about Etsy, and it is called Crickets to Cha-chings. So you can find me wherever you listen to podcasts on that. And my website is laurenkeplinger.com. Thank you so much for listening. Why not head over to @Resilient Retail Club on Instagram? Let me know what you took away from today's episode. And if you have a moment to rate and review the podcast, that would be very much appreciated. It really helps with getting the word out to more listeners. And of course, if you follow or subscribe, then you'll be the first to know about each new episode. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, then I invite you to check out resilientretailclub.com. The Resilient Retail Club is the membership for anyone wanting to start, grow, or scale a profitable product business. No more trawling Google trying to find the answers to your questions, or wading through general business advice that speaks mainly to service-based businesses. Whether you're still at the idea stage or you've been going for a while but want to get more focused and organised when it comes to your business, the Resilient Retail Club is the place for you. With a library of courses tailored to creative product businesses, several live sessions a month, and a supportive and active community, the Resilient Retail Club is the perfect membership to help you hit your goals faster. Check it out at resilientretailclub.com.